My 16.3 coaching session review and developmental plan. So the aims and objectives for my coaching session were to be able to use the skills learned in the lesson to reflect in the rounders game, and to be able to get as many rounders in the game as possible, throw the ball with accuracy, and throw the ball and get 5 catches in a row. This is my risk assessment, so I'll just go through a few quickly. So, for example, dehydration due to overexertion. This would be the participants of the activity. There was water available, regular rest breaks after each set of exercise while we were explaining things. The likelihood is 1 and the outcome would be 2. And the risk rating of that would be overall 2. And again, the water was available, rest breaks when me and Harry were explaining things was available, and first aid and staff were aware of the procedures. So this is about our warm-up. We did have to adapt it slightly because of the length of time that we had, and also they were a little bit late starting, and also we didn't have any tennis rackets. We only had rounders bats, so that was going to be a bit hard to bounce the ball up. So we just cut out the rounders bats altogether, the tennis rackets, and we just stuck with just the DVD game on its own. And we just continued that for about 5 to 7 minutes. For our main activity, it was just a bucket game. So we just threw the balls and they had to collect them in 30 seconds, however many they got. They won if they got more than the other team. And our activity 2 was just 3 batters, bowlers and a fielder. And that was quite straightforward. That was just as a group of 3. Then the conditioned game was just the rounders game as normal. And the cool down was just a fruit game, so we just got them to choose between apple, cherry and pear and pineapple. It was just like the DVD game for the warm up, and then it was just a stretch of their choice depending on the fruit. And again, the session aim and objectives. So my SWOT analysis, I said my strengths were adaptations, so like when I had to adjust to the slippery weather, I told them to walk when they were playing rounders rather than running, just in case they slipped over. And then I had timings. I was enthusiastic, vocal, good praise, spatial awareness. I introduced myself and the aims and objectives of the session. I had a good explanation of skills and demonstrations and organisation. But my weaknesses were technical instruction, so sometimes I didn't elaborate enough. And so therefore I didn't really give coaching points, and then I wasn't very motivating, and sometimes I did lose group control. So those are my weaknesses. And my opportunities, I could do a UK CC Level 1 certificate in coaching rounders in Plymouth, and it costs £199 here. It's a 2-day course starting from the Saturday the 7th of November and the 8th on Sunday as well, and is between 8:45 and 5 p.m. However, my limit would be it is quite expensive. It is £200 for 2 days plus travel costs, so like whatever where I decide to go, so train or petrol and car. And it is in Plymouth, which is quite a while away from my house. It takes about 4 hours 44 minutes in the car. We're travelling 240 miles is the distance, so it's quite a long way, and it's even longer on train, so it's 5 hours 36 on a train. And also I work on Saturdays 9 a.m. till 6 p.m, so I'd have to get the day off, and in college during the week it's not ideal because I need to be revising or doing my studies, and I can't take the day off college, so the only day I'd be able to go is a Sunday, but obviously it's a weekend thing, so it's not very practical because I would have to cut down my shift at work. But there was no DBS check required for this one. So my 3 strengths were vocal, spatial awareness and organisation. I said that I was well voiced because when I introduced myself, and then I explained what the session was going to include. So I said that it was going to include rounders activities, and I named that we were going to do some specific batting and fielding and batting practice. And because I was vocal, it made all the students listen, as it made me seem confident. So I knew what I was going on about, and I knew that as soon as I mentioned rounders, it automatically captured their attention. But my voice also allowed me to control the group better at different times. So when I was leading an activity and I thought the kids weren't focused, I'd raise my voice slightly. And also when Harry was leading, sometimes they didn't like listen, and they did lose focus a bit and started playing with the ball. So I did just raise my voice again and say, listen, otherwise you kind of wouldn't get around this time. It did make me raising my voice did make the transition from each activity smoother, because I was able to regain their concentration, which meant that obviously we had more time at the end to play rounders, which they all quite enjoyed. And also I said organisation, so at the start, my planning of the session, I was good at organisation and also equipment, because I made sure that I planned and written out my paper plan at least a week before, so I could kind of look over it each day just to remember what I was doing, and then that made it more smoother when it came to the actual day, because I knew what I was already doing, and I knew what and when I needed to be moving from each activity, and what session I was leading, and what session Harry was leading, and what equipment we needed. And then I also printed out again equipment list, which meant that we knew what, like, straight in onto the stage and getting the equipment. And also when Harry was coaching, I was then preparing and setting up the next activity. So for example, Harry was doing the batting and the bowling with the children, and then I was then setting up the bucket and ball activity, and it meant that the changeover between activities was minimal, and that we didn't really waste time. So it did again give us extra time to play rounders at the end, and the kids didn't lose focus or become irritable, so they didn't start playing with balls. They were straight into the next activity once Harry had explained. Also, spatial awareness. I said that as we were playing rounders, I made sure that each group of three had the correct distance between each other and the other teams, the other groups on the field, not just the groups within my team. Because obviously they could have got hit with a bat or a ball, and it could have been a safety issue if they were too close to each other, and it could have risked someone getting hit and being an injury. So they could have clashed, but luckily there wasn't. Everyone was happy, and it made the session more enjoyable, which then made the session go faster, and we didn't waste time because we weren't constantly moving everyone around. I'd already set up the spatial and where they needed to be, otherwise they would have just could have clashed. I said that my area to improve was my technical instruction, so I wasn't giving out enough coaching points, which meant I always didn't explain the techniques in the correct way, and the children, so I'd use more advanced knowledge, and I'd forget who my audience were, that they were only about 8 years old, so they would sometimes get confused, and that meant that they would zone out or they'd get distracted, and then it ended up being difficult with their behaviour. And as for the session, it made it harder because we were re-explaining things several times, like where they should be going, or how to bat or bowl. Also, my motivation and my reinforcement, I'm just not very good with motivation because I am quite shy when it comes to coaching others, and sometimes I find it overwhelming to raise my voice, although I can raise my voice when I need their attention. But when it comes to giving motivation or coaching points, I do forget to do it just in the moment, and sometimes not motivating them made them lose focus and attention, which then made certain students distract others and mess around, and therefore they were time wasting for the students who were enjoying and getting involved in the session. And again, I had to reinforce certain coaching points throughout the lesson, such as when they were bowling in the rounders game, they were bowling overhead rather than doing an underarm bowl, but I forgot to tell them. I did say at one point to do it underarm, but I wasn't reinforcing it to them, and that slowed the lesson down because the batters were continually missing the balls as the ball hit the ground too early, because it was more of a cricket ball than an underarm ball. And dealing with the challenging behaviour, some of the kids did have behavioural difficulties, and at times they began to whine at certain points because their team was losing. or they did claim that some people were cheating, which was just a bit like childish and immature behaviour. And neither me nor Harry really knew how to deal with this. We kind of ignored it at some points, and others we did say that the rules were fair and that obviously we didn't see them cheating. And sometimes the behaviour did escalate, but there were distractions going on in the class by running off and going on the tablets, and this slowed the session down and took the enjoyment out for the children who were in and who were called in on time, whereas the others just kind of ran away. And it did take the attention away from children who were doing well and did have positive behaviour. My SMART targets and development plan. For the coaching points, my SMART target is I will lead a group session of 7 participants by the end of the month, making sure I give a minimum of 3 coaching points per activity. So whatever activity I'm doing, so if I was to do that one again, I'd have to give coaching points to the bowling and the batting, and also how to do fielding and to play rounders, because those were the 3 main activities. And then my development plan, I will attend a 2-day course called the UK CC Level 1 Certificate in Coaching Rounders. Again, it is the same one as before, but it is in Plymouth and it costs £199. It's on the Saturday 7th and 8th November 2017. It's between 8:45 and 5 p.m. From that, I will learn the specific coaching points of rounders in batting, bowling and fielding, such as in fielding the gate method and stopping the ball, which not a lot of them knew, which I did have to explain sometimes. Again, also as a specific qualification, I will get experience and go and coach another session, like my SMART target's telling me to, because nothing will really reflect how you do on the actual day, because obviously it all varies on who you get and what coaching session you're doing. So to get more experience to reflect that, I will go and do another coaching session, and hopefully with that qualification I will be a better coach and be more an improved coach. For motivation, I have to use 2 different motivating techniques per person in the group when I next coach, and that will be with 8 in the group, so I'll have to do 16 coaching different motivating techniques for the whole session. For experience, I'll go to Northamptonshire, which is quite far away. Again, that is another limit because it is quite far away. On the 16th of July, where I'll watch the England squad training day and observe the coaches to see how they give out praise and offer motivation. I will talk to some of the players one-to-one and ask them how they're most motivated during training sessions by their coaches and what they don't like. I'll also speak to the coaches one-to-one after observing them, and I will discuss with them the most effective ways to motivate their students. Or I can also visit Canning Town Recreation Ground every Wednesday 6:30 till 8 p.m. Also, this is another experience, one I do need to coach again so that I can really understand the leadership roles and to make more improvements. For challenging behaviour, I was going to go to a primary school and lead a coaching session, making sure 5 children have frequent verbal cueing to help them understand positive expectations if they appear distracted. So I did need to reinforce it again, and obviously set in line the rules and routines that I will do as a coach. So, for example, saying like they need time out if they are a primary school age, a detention if they're secondary school age. And also I will do an online course which is free and can take 5 weeks, but you need to do it for 3 hours each day with the National STEM Learning Centre, where I'll learn with Paul Dix and Becca Knowles, who are both leading voices in behaviour management in the UK. From this, I will manage my own behaviour to influence the behaviour of my students. I will also learn to reduce friction when students behave badly and become familiar with rules to achieve consistency, rules and routines. They also encourage you to experiment with the new skills you have learnt, so I'll put them into practice again, like before, at a next coaching session, because it will actively reflect what I discover on the online course, and then I can make those adjustments during that session and I will be more improved.